Hi everybody, it's Susan Phelps, your Berkshire Hathaway Florida Realty real estate specialist in the greater Sarasota area. And today I want to talk to you about the cost of living in Sarasota and how it compares to some larger cities where people are moving from into the Sarasota area or just Florida. So let's do this after you take a minute to subscribe to my channel and give my video a thumbs up, make a comment. I'd appreciate it. Okay, so you want to know the difference between the cost of living in Sarasota compared to where you live. You can go to many online calculators and plug in your city and then your destination of Sarasota. I used bestplaces.net to pull this data, and mind you, this data is 2020 data, but maybe not totally updated because we've had such an increase in prices, in home prices, but all over the country. So it might be just a wash when you look at the differences. So let's take a look at what we use as a benchmark. The average cost of living overall, a national average, is 100, and we use this as a baseline. For instance, Sarasota's overall cost of living is 102.7%, so it's 2.7% above the national average. So let's take a look at some of the major cities where people are moving from to the Sarasota area. Now, as I've mentioned, the cost of living overall in Sarasota is 102.7%. When I say overall, that means the cost of living for a homeowner, that it doesn't include childcare expenses because that's all over the board, and it doesn't include state income tax and sales taxes and property taxes because those are really different in different states. So generally speaking, Sarasota, let's start with Sarasota at 102.7% overall, where we're looking at the cost of groceries to be 106.5%, 6.5% above the national average, not too bad. The cost of housing is 114% higher. Utilities are lower at 94.2%. And the cost of transportation is almost 91%. So 9% lower than in these places that we're looking at. And healthcare is nearly 98% of the national average, with miscellaneous items being big ticket items and small ticket items like entertainment and a TV. Anyway, that's about 101, so that's pretty normal. The cost of living in New York City is generally 45% less than it is in Sarasota, and I can attest to that. I have a daughter living in New York City, and I hear about the cost of living from her all the time. $100 doesn't go very far in groceries for her, and transportation costs are extremely high. She spent $50 one way going from the outskirts of Harlem to Queens the other day to get her COVID shot. So, looking at this chart, you've heard about the cost of groceries. Now, the cost of housing is the biggest difference here, being 61% less than in Sarasota. Okay, so let's look at Chicago, Illinois. Overall, the cost of living in Chicago, compared to Sarasota, is 3.9% higher. That doesn't seem like very much. But we see the biggest difference here in transportation, 34%. Let's back up and talk about the cost of housing. It's only 15% more here. That doesn't make sense, but when you think about it, Chicago was hit so hard by the crash, they still haven't come up to pre-crash prices in their housing market. comparing costs to Newark, New Jersey. Doesn't seem like a 14% less cost could be that much difference, but we're still not looking at those state taxes and state income tax. Let's see, the biggest difference here being transportation, 41% less than in Newark, New Jersey. So these numbers don't look that bad, but we'll see later what really impacts the cost of living. The cost of living in Boston, Massachusetts is nearly 37% higher than it is in Sarasota. And this is impacted mostly by the housing market. When I used to visit my daughter in Boston, I'd see the posters on houses and look in the paper for just to compare, and I was shocked. What you can get in Sarasota for $800,000 is way more than what you can get in Boston for $800,000. And believe me, when they go on the market, they are snapped up right away. That is the main difference, along with the cost of transportation. In these big cities, you have to depend sometimes on, Uber or the train or whatever, because it's so hard to find parking in Boston. It's just so competitive. It makes you feel very tense the minute you get into a car. And we don't have to deal with that so much in Sarasota. So one sideline there. Okay, let's look at our last city, and that's San Francisco. South San Francisco. The cost of living here is 53% less than in South San Francisco. And that, here again, is mostly because of the cost of housing being 74% less than it is in San Francisco. And I can attest to that as well. I had a customer from California that was selling his home there and coming here to spend his equity, and he could get 3 times more of a house. He was just so happy to spend his millions here because he got an amazing house on the water with full water views that he would never have been able to afford in California. As well, in California, we have a difference of 37% lower cost of transportation. So one thing the basic calculators don't include, as I mentioned before, is the state sales and state income taxes. This is a big one because the cities that we've looked at are all in states that have state income tax and higher sales tax. The New York City sales tax rate is a total of 8.875% once the use tax is added, and then there's the Metropolitan Commuter Transportation District surcharge, 8.75%. We are charged 7%. Florida has a 6% sales tax, and Sarasota County has a 1% sales tax, so 7% doesn't seem like a lot compared to some of these other places. Now let's talk about the state income tax in New York. The tax rates range from 4 to 8.82%, and if you're in that upper income bracket, you could be, say, $1 million. Say you make $1 million, your income tax bill is going to be $88,000. That's just astounding to me, and that's why a lot of people are moving from the state of New York to the state of Florida. The Illinois state sales tax is currently 6.25% when you add on the sales tax surcharge. The total sales tax is 9.25% compared to our 7% here. And the Illinois state income tax is a flat 4.95%. So if you make $100,000 a year, you're going to save $5,000 a year by moving to the state of Florida. In Boston, Massachusetts, the rate for sales tax is 6.25%. Just a tiny bit less than it is here. But they have a flat tax rate of 5%. That's the state income tax rate of 5%. This goes for earned income, which is your wages, salary, and tips, and your unearned income, which is dividends and asset interest. It seems like that really adds up. Now in California, the state income tax rates range from 1% to 12.3%. If you're in that upper tax bracket, I feel bad for you, because that could be a whopping tax bill. Now the sales tax in California is running 8.5% compared to our 7%. Now let's move on to another tax topic, and that is property taxes. And I can only address that for Sarasota and Manatee County. And I can't really address it specifically because there is so much that goes into calculating our property taxes here. The equation that we used to use was simple. It was your assessed tax value times your tax rate or millage, and you got your tax bill. That was simple. But then we instituted the Save Our Homes Amendment and Amendment 1, which has been great for Florida residents, and you have to be here, as a resident to take advantage of these tax rates. But at any rate, those amendments are really resident friendly because it keeps our tax increases capped at 3% a year, and that is a portable tax rate that you can move from home to home when you when you buy a new house. Along with many variables depending on where you're located, there are homestead exemptions, there's senior exemptions, there's veteran exemptions, and there's there's an agricultural exemption. I have customers that moved out to Mayaca on a little farm, and they're renting cows from their neighbors so that they can get the agricultural waiver. If you've got a cow on your property, you get an agricultural waiver. Now, you're not going to be able to do that in the new home communities, but there are places that you can still keep a cow. So keep that in mind. Along with that, just all of the different taxing districts for supporting our infrastructure, fire department, police department, etc. Really depending on where you are will depend on what your tax rate is. Now, real estate professionals have used over the years an estimate. We will tell our customers to estimate your taxes by multiplying the purchase price of your home by 1 to 1.5%. This will give you an estimate, and I qualify that over and over. This is just an estimate. Well, I connected with Rana, my contact down at the tax collector's office, and she's not very happy that real estate professionals are using that rule of thumb, because she's the one that gets the angry phone calls when someone that's moved here gets their first tax bill and they don't understand why it might be over that estimated amount that when they use that 1 to 1.5%. She suggests that you use the previous owner's tax bills, look at their history, kind of estimate what kind of taxing authorities have been levied on their particular property in order to get a better idea whether that estimate is really going to give you the number that's going to make you feel comfortable when purchasing that property. Now, there are some things that are happening in our area. Every morning my husband and I wake up and we read the paper. Well, I read the local paper and he reads online national sources for national news. And we'll stop each other, we'll interrupt each other when we find something that's really interesting. Well, this morning he interrupted me with the news that Florida Power and Light, which is our mostly in Florida, the power company that delivers our electricity, they are going to add on to the solar plant in Parrish, which is in northeast Manatee County. There's already a solar plant out there, and here's a photograph, and there's 2 natural gas plants there. Well, they're going to retire those gas plants and they're going to add on to that solar plant. It's going to be the biggest one in Florida. It seems funny that we're just now getting to this level of use of the sun in the Sunshine State, but you know, that's another topic for a later discussion. But we are so happy and excited that finally solar is going to become the #1 energy source in the Sunshine State. It just has to happen. And then when I'm reading the news, I'm telling him about things that are happening in our area. And so I told him about the rent article that I read, but I'll get back to that in a minute. I want to talk to you about something else that is specific to certain areas of Sarasota and Manatee that makes a difference in the utility bills, and that is switching from septic to sewer use, to public sewer use. We've been on septic. We were one of the last phases of a project to switch all of the septic tanks that were along the along Philippi Creek. Philippi Creek runs all through Sarasota County and then dumps into the intercoastal and then out into the Gulf. Well, it was determined that the septic tanks were feeding the nitrogen. They were leaching nitrogen into the aquifers, and it was flowing out into the creek and then out into the bay and into the intercoastal and then out into the Gulf. And this is a problem. Not only that, for us, the use of a septic tank was problematic because they tend to fail occasionally. And every time that we had 1 or 2 extra people in the house, we ended up calling a plumber by the end of the weekend. So we were really glad to be switched over to sewer. Some people weren't so glad because they knew that their bills were going to go up. And indeed, our bill went up. But we're okay with that because we really like having the system that it doesn't get overwhelmed in a weekend by a few extra people. Our bills did go up. They went up about 2.5 times more. We used to spend about $30 to $35 a month on water, and now we're spending $80 to $85 a month on water. Now, I wanted to talk to you quickly about rents, and that was the article that I was saying that I interrupted my husband to read today. We have been pretty flat on rental rates. We're in the last year, but that's pretty much because of COVID, I think. So we're going to look at the rate of a 1-bedroom in Sarasota compared to Bradenton. So the median price for a 1-bedroom in Sarasota County currently sits at $1,031 for the cost of a 2-bedroom, or for the cost of a 1-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom is $1,412. In Bradenton, It's up a little higher, but it's $1,137 for a 1-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom is $1,312. Compared to other cities in Florida, we're higher. We're higher than in Tampa, Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, and I think that we're going to remain there because we just don't have the supply to meet the demand. We've seen a lot of our apartment buildings go up in the last couple of years, so maybe that rate will come down. The main thing I'm trying to tell you about the rent is that if you're going to rent while you're looking, make sure that you have your ducks in a row. You're going to need a job. You're going to need or be able to show assets that will convince a landlord that you're able to pay. Now, we're looking at a background check and a credit check, and if you've got large dogs, that's going to be difficult. Sometimes single-family homes aren't so difficult when you have large pets, but there's only a few buildings that I can think of that will accept large dogs. So wow, that was a lot of information. And I know I didn't answer everybody's questions. If you have questions, please comment below and I'll try and get back to you. If I don't have the answer, I'll find it, because that's what I want to be for you, is a resource. Please continue watching my videos. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss anything that's coming up soon, because I'm going to put weekly videos up and I hope you enjoy them, and I'll talk to you soon.